My name is Sarah, and I am currently 27 years old, but my story began when I was a child, and I want you to focus with me so that you understand the events in all the details, and at the beginning, and so that you are in the picture. I am Pakistani, and I was born and lived the first 9 years of my life in Pakistan, specifically in the city of Lahore, and we lived in one of these villages. The city and village in which we lived were in the middle of the mountains, and it was difficult for cars to reach it. In this village we lived with my grandfather and my uncles. I mean, most of the people who live in this village are considered my relatives. Every afternoon, the girls and boys and I would play with each other while my father and uncles would sit and watch us. We were sitting playing with them, and with them was my grandfather's brother, who was my father's uncle and my grandfather in the first place. This person's looks were strange to me and the girls who were sitting and playing with me. Of course, at that time, we were children and did not know anything about anything. Fatima, my cousin, was the eldest one of us at that time, and she was 11 years old, and I noticed this old man looks at us with strange. She became afraid and started alerting us and warning him, saying that none of you should approach him or even talk to him. We spread the matter between us, and all the girls knew that this old man was not safe. Days passed and we were in the same situation, until one day my father and my uncle came out of the village we were in and went to the city, because at that time they had an event, and there was no longer anyone left in this village. We were the girls, and with us were the harem, and 3 of my uncle's children. As usual, after the afternoon prayer, we went out of our homes and sat playing in the village. But this time no one was paying attention to us, and before the world got dark and we entered our homes, I went out into the village, in the direction of the chairs where my father and my uncle were sitting. I saw my grandfather sitting on the chair alone, and at the time I thought he was going with them to the city. The day she saw Fatima, she said, "Leave him, and none of you are talking to him." We told her, okay. And all the girls at that time entered their homes. There was no one left but me and Noura, who is my sister, the little girl. Before we entered the house, this grandfather started calling us and saying, "Come sit with me. Let me talk to you because I am bored, and today there is no one with me." Of course, at that time, I had it in my head that it was impossible for me to go and sit with him if anything had happened. I spoke to Noura, my sister, and told her to never talk to him. But Noura, my sister, was young at the time and loved to be stubborn, and because I told her not to go, she was stubborn with me and went and sat with him. And I went after her to bring her back, but unfortunately, I could not reach him unless she had sat with him, and I was forced to go to him to bring her back. But as soon as I arrived at him, something very strange happened to me, all fear. What was in me from my grandfather disappeared to the point that I sat down. I laughed with him and talked, and I did not feel the time at all until my mother came out and called me, and the next day came, and we went out with the girls. I told them, "Girls, you see, this old man is nothing to be afraid of at all. Yesterday, my sister Noura and I sat with him, and nothing changed for us." And I could not finish this speech until my cousin Fatima came and gave me a hand on my face, until I fell to the ground, and she started screaming at me and saying, "I didn't tell you not to go to him." Of course, all the girls were surprised by she's reaction to her even though I was with them. But on that same night, I knew that Fatima had the right to hit me, and I'm telling you why. After we finished, all the girls played. They went to their homes, and I went and sat with this old man to help Fatima. But this time he held my hand and made me sit close to him, and he began to put his hand on sensitive places on my body. At that time, I was afraid, but I could not speak or shout, and there was someone sitting there to prevent me, and he continued to make these movements with me until the disaster happened. He assaulted me and blood came from me. The first time he saw blood coming from me, he took a box and put the blood in it, At that time, I didn't care about anything except that he leave me and let me return home. During this time, I fainted and I did not feel like myself again until the second day, and I did not know what happened after that. He assaulted me and I was afraid that one of my family would know what happened to me. On the same day, I went out to play with the girls, but my mood was tired because of the misfortune that happened to me yesterday, and no one noticed me except Fatima, my cousin, and she came to me and said, "Sarah, I am sorry that I hit you yesterday. If you are still upset with me, I hope that you will forgive me and see that I only hit you for your benefit. And I did not want this old man to do to you the same things he did with me." And the first time she said that word to me, I said to her, "Wait a minute, what is the strange thing that this old man did with you?" And after I said that to her, I noticed that her facial features changed as if she was frightened. And I took her away from the girls and told her, "For God's sake, tell me what this old man did with you," and she told me everything that happened to her, and it turned out that he made the same movement as he did with me. He assaulted her until the blood came out, and as soon as the blood came out, he took a box and put the blood in it, and after that she fainted, and she did not wake up until the second day. Fatima did not want anyone to approach him because she knew that he was a traitor, and she became afraid for us, but unfortunately this stubbornness caused me to fall into the same calamity. The important thing is that now, that's it, Fatima and I were stuck in this disaster, and our only goal was to keep the rest of the girls from getting close to this old man, so that he wouldn't do the same thing to them as he did to us. After a few days, I pulled Fatima aside and said to her, "What do you think? We should let our parents know about the thing that happened to us, this old man, so that they would expel him or harm him. Anything, the most important thing is that they know that he is evil." Fatima said, "I have tried before you, but if I come and want to talk to my parents about the other person with me, this old man, I find myself saying the opposite of what I want to say." I told her, "What do you mean?" She said, "For example, if I come and want to speak badly about this person, I find myself saying the opposite of what I want to say. I was sitting there praising him as if someone was sitting talking to me." Of course, her words did not enter my head, and I said, "I am waiting for my father to come, and the first time he comes, I will inform him of everything that happened to me." In fact, the first time I saw my father coming home, I ran to him to inform him, but I swear God the first time I came to my father was, involuntarily, I spoke about him. I began to praise him and say that he had a good time and he played with the girls, and from this, my father said, "Yes, yes, in fact, this is your grandfather, and you will not find anyone better than him." And on that very night, I could not sleep, and I was waiting for the second day to come so that I could meet Fatima and inform her of what happened to me, and at 12 o'clock at night, I noticed that Noura, my sister, got up from her bed and left the room. At that time I said for sure that she had gone to the bathroom and would come back. But I noticed that the girl had grown tall and left the room so I could look for her, and as soon as I opened the door of the house, I saw her coming out of the old man's room. This is what I am ashamed to tell, is my grandfather. I went to her and pulled her by the hair and took her to the room and said to her, "Teach me what happened to you with this old man." And all the while she started crying and taught me everything that happened to her. It turned out that he made the same movement with her, but he had a whole week every day at 12 o'clock at night, letting her come to my room while I was sitting talking to Noura, my sister. She told me something strange. She said that every day at 12 o'clock at night, my mother wakes her up from sleep and says to her, "Go to your grandfather's room. Your grandfather wants you," and she kept getting up and going to the room. I told her, "Okay, I'm with you all night," and I didn't see my mother entering the room. Of course, this is the case. At the time, we were young and we did not know about the evil. The important thing is that the days have passed, and my psychology, Noura, my sister, and Fatima have become tired because of the thing that happened to us, and we did not know what the solution was. One day, we went out in the afternoon to play with the girls, but I noticed that all the girls were psychologically tired, as if they were upset, and we saw Zainab, the one who is my second cousin, was holding a corner and sitting there crying. I went to her to see what happened to her, but the first time I came I asked her and said to her, "What's wrong with you?" She exploded and started screaming and taught me everything that happened to her. She said that old men assaulted her and did the same thing to her. Of course, all the girls, they were 8 in number, and as soon as I heard her words, I noticed that all of their faces began to change as if they were shocked. But you heard the shock from me. Imagine, good people, that this dirty old man made the same movement with all the girls that he made with me, and every one of them was afraid that she would know the second. But at that time, God willed it, Zainab raises her voice, and all the girls hear it, of course. Fatima, at that moment, fainted from the force of the shock because the poor woman was afraid of us and was wary of him. But our stubbornness made us make the same mistake. And now it is over. Almost all of us have lost our future, and we were not able to inform anyone of the thing that happened to us, and we sat for months in the same situation, and we were all in our own psyches. It was destroyed, and we did not leave our homes because of it. One day my father came home and said a word at that moment. The moment he said it, I felt like I would get out of the hell I was in. He said, "Girls, prepare your things because after 3 days we will move to Saudi Arabia. And I will give you good news that I got a job there with a good salary and I will get it with me." At that moment, I did not know anything about Saudi Arabia except that it had Mecca and Medina. And to be frank with you, the biggest dream for me was to see the Kaaba in reality. So at that time I was flying with joy. And at the same time I was happy because I had finally left this village and passed away from the old man, the one who ruined my life because of him. And the only thing that upset me was that I no longer saw my uncle girls, and I was afraid for them because of the old man. This is the important thing. I returned these 2 days and it was over. We said goodbye to the girls and cried with them for a while. We headed to the airport. But as soon as we came to leave the village, my sister Noura and I sat down to chat. At the same moment, my father was surprised and said, "Surely you were poisoned from the dinner you ate yesterday." He raised the issue and continued on his way until we reached the airport. This was the first time I had left the village where we lived. I was surprised by the things I saw. The important thing was that we boarded the plane and headed to Saudi Arabia. Just like that, I told you that I did not know about Saudi Arabia except that it has Mecca and Medina, but our destination was neither Mecca nor Medina. We headed to the city of Jeddah, and I had never heard of it at all. When we first arrived, we went to the house of my father's cousin, and he was the one who spoke to my father and caught him at work. This, of course, was his house. It is small in a way you can imagine, meaning that it is almost a room, a bathroom, a hall, and the kitchen is in the same bedroom. On top of that, we came to them and made them more uncomfortable. The important thing is that we sat with him for almost 4 days until my father looked for an apartment, and he got an apartment that suits us. The day our affairs were taken care of, we guaranteed that we had an apartment. My father said, "We are in the city of Jeddah, and the city of Jeddah is considered the closest city to Mecca, and tomorrow, God willing, we will go to Mecca to pray there. I mean, prepare yourselves at this moment." And from the strength of joy, we all sat crying and could not believe that we were seeing the Kaaba. This is the Kaaba that we used to see, but from behind the television, and on this night, I could not do that. I was waiting for the morning to come so that we could move and go to Mecca, and we actually prepared and walked to Mecca, but as soon as we arrived, strange things started happening to me. I started to feel deaf and scream loudly. even though a few minutes before that I was healthy and nothing was wrong with me. My mother and father were surprised, and at the same time they were afraid for me, and my father's language was Arabic. At that time, it was not good at all, and because he was afraid for me, he sat shouting loudly to the presence of 3 soldiers, and thank God that one of them knew how to speak, he responded. And after he spoke to my father and he understood the matter, he took him to the clinic in the sanctuary, and there they examined me and said that I was healthy and that there was nothing wrong with me. My mother, she was surprised. She said, "How can you say that she is healthy when a while ago she was dying from severe pain?" The doctor sent the report to my mother and my mother showed it to her. At that time, she was sure that there was nothing wrong with me. She said, okay, give us a stroller, because it is clear that the girl is tired and cannot walk." And indeed, they gave us a stroller because it was clear that the girl was tired and could not walk. In fact, they gave us a stroller and we headed topless for prayer, of course, all this time, and during all the events that took place, Noura, my sister, did not speak or open her mouth. She was silent the whole time, holding my mother's dress. The first time we entered to the prayed place circumambulate, the disaster happened. Imagine, I was not seeing the prayed place as if it was not there in its place. At the same time, my sister Noura was sitting crying and shouting and saying that there were monsters sitting after her. I kept saying to my mother, "Where is the prayed place?" Something in front of me, and I slept in the car, and I no longer felt like myself until we were in the car and returning to Jeddah. And the day I woke up, I sat crying because I did not see your place of prayer, and after we arrived home, I asked my sister Noura, and I told her I saw the place of prayer, and she told me, "No, all I saw in the place was that there were monsters sitting around, following me and lurking. They kidnapped me." At that moment, I knew and was certain that something strange had happened to me and Noura, my sister, and I said I had to find out. The important thing was that the days went back and my father enrolled us in the Pakistani International School in Jeddah. Of course, all the students who were studying there were Pakistanis, so we started studying. Me and my sister Noura was in same class. Among the subjects we were studying was a subject called Islamic Studies, and one day we took a lesson called Magic and Other Worlds. I was surprised at the time because I had never heard of these things, even though I was 11 years old at that time. The teacher began explaining to us about magic and how to protect ourselves and our thoughts, and from this, then she sat talking about his symptoms and said that if a person has these symptoms, it means that he is bewitched, and half of what she said applies to me. But I made myself feel normal and continued the lesson with her and waited for the lesson to end, and I went to her and taught her and told her that most of the things that you talked about while sitting would happen to me, and I taught her about the situation, what happened to me in the harem, and I told her that even though I was in the middle of the harem, I never saw the place of prayer. The teacher was surprised by my words and felt that my statement was long. She said, "First thing you go to work tomorrow morning, come to the office, and I want you to teach me everything in detail." In fact, on the second day, I went to the office, and she said that I should tell her about my childhood. How did I live it when I started to tell her the whole story of my life, and I told her that we lived in a village in Pakistan with my relatives, and we used to play with the girls. And from this talk, I reached the old man's room and started to tell her about his situation and his strangeness, but I did not tell her about the thing that happened with me and the way I spoke to her. It was as if she felt that I was hiding something from her, and she said, "If you want me to help you, you must teach me everything and all the details." I taught her about the situation that happened with me, the old man and the girls, and I don't know how I was able to speak to her, even though before that I tried to inform my father, but I couldn't, and I felt that someone was holding my tongue. The important thing is after I finished, from what I said, this teacher learned about everything that happened to me. She said to her, "Shut up, I don't want you to know. My mother and my father, I want this matter to sit between you and me." She said to me, "Give good news." But out of his concern and fear for me, I would not get home unless the matter had reached my mother and father, and they wanted to investigate me and my father after they found out that my grandfather he assaulted him and he went crazy. My mother tried to calm him down, but he never stopped. He said, "Now we have to go to the hospital to confirm what the teacher said." He took us and went to the hospital. And there I can tell you that I witnessed the worst scenario that I could never see in my life. After the doctor examined me, she confirmed that it was really my grandfather who had assaulted me. Ollie, my mother, and my father, after they heard her words, went crazy and sat screaming loudly. Unfortunately, my father blamed me and came back and beat me until I fainted, and from the force of the beating, I sat asleep in the hospital for a whole week. And my father, because he beat me, called for my arrest. And now he was threatened that he would leave the country, and I am sure that if he leaves, we will suffer. At that time, I wanted my father, but he understood that I tried to teach him. But the day I came to tell him, it was as if someone had held my tongue. The important thing is that the days passed, and my father's only concern was that he would return to Pakistan to take revenge on my grandfather. He tried to make me travel, but his sponsor prevented me from traveling, and one day he came to my mother and said to him, "I have to go to Pakistan, and in order for us to travel, I have to go and settle a problem so that they will give us a final exit." My mother said, "If you think this is the appropriate solution, then go and settle it. But what is the plan you have in mind?" He told her, "I will go to the owner of the restaurant and settle a problem with him, and then he will take me to arrest, and there they will show me the deportation prison." And he actually went down and settled a problem with the restaurant owner. Then one day he had a problem with the restaurant owner, and he went to the deportation prison. There he told them that I had my family with me and let them go with me. They actually gave us a final exit, and we prepared to return to Pakistan. Of course, during this whole period we were sitting in Saudi Arabia and we were not communicating with an uncles in Pakistan, and we do not know what happened to them. And when we first arrived in Pakistan, I saw evil in my father's eyes, and that was it. His intention was to take revenge on my grandfather, and the poor person at the time did not know that Nora had put her in the same situation as me, and that my grandfather had assaulted her. And when we first arrived, my father had left. He opened the door to my grandfather's room, and Uncle was surprised by what had come to him then, and what was wrong with opening the room with such force. They were surprised by everything and pulled away. My father sat and calmed him down, and my father was still asking about this old man. My uncles, they told him, "This old man went to Afghanistan 7 months ago, and now he is working there. Basically, what do you want in it?" My father told them about everything that happened to him in the beginning. My uncles did not believe him until the report came out, and they saw it, of course. At that moment, the situation was chaotic in a way you can imagine. Everyone was sitting and screaming from one side, and my uncles. They were afraid for their daughters and asked him, but the girls did not answer me and me because I knew everything. I taught them and told them that the old man assaulted all of us, and even Nora, my sister. All of us assaulted us in the same way, and they immediately took us to the hospital. In order to investigate us, they confirmed that the old man had assaulted all of the girls, and at that moment my uncle Javed had a heart attack and died of shock, because 3 of his daughters lost their future because of this old man, and I returned to cursing at us while we were in a state of depression, sadness, and fear, and we did not know what would happen to us. And one day, the days of uncles gathered and decided that in order for this matter to be closed and not to be brought out outside the family, each of the uncle's children would marry one of us and let the children choose as they pleased. Each one began to choose who he wanted, Of course, our ages at that time were close to each other, but at the same time we remained children because my age is that. It was almost 12 years ago, but I had to accept it in order to forget a serious matter. In fact, each of us married one of the uncle's children, and the paternal uncle at the time were happy and thought that the matter would be over after we got married, but they did not know that nothing would come from this matter except calamities. And after the first, a week had passed since our wedding, and we noticed that the children started to do strange things to them. They started having convulsions, the one started cracking, the one started suddenly going off, and the one was standing at the wall and sitting talking to himself. I mean, the situation was strange in a way you can imagine, and the house was becoming like a psychiatric hospital, among the many strange things sitting there. The important thing happened when the situation became more extreme. One of my aunts said, "You must bring a warlock so that he can recite the entire verse, because it is possible that the entire verse contains magic." But my father and my uncles refused to bring a warlock. My aunt said to them, "Okay, since you are not going, I am the one who goes and I am the one who brings the warlock." And when they saw that she was tough about it, they themselves went and brought the warlock. The warlock name was Abdul Rahman. This warlock was one of the best educated people in the city, and he might be in the whole of Pakistan. One day he started reading to the house and did not notice anything strange happening. His uncle said, "Okay, come and read to the girls." And indeed, he took Noura, my sister, and began to read to her. No sooner had Noura, my sister, fallen to the ground and an uncle atmosphere was trying to catch her, but because of the strength of the uprising that was in her, they were unable to catch her, an uncle, even though there were 3 of them. At that time, the sheikh stopped reading and said, "Wait when I go to the city and I will come back to you quickly, and the most important thing is leave the girls alone in the room and you did not go out." And in fact he left and came back half an hour later, and he had 3 warlocks with him, and he said to my father and my uncle, "Let each of these young men read to one of the girls so that we can find out what is wrong with them." Even if they all gave the same reaction, it means that they have one magic spell, and thus it will be easier for us, the topic, and we could get it out of them. And they actually started reciting it to the girls while I was outside the room, and from the intensity of the screaming that I was hearing, I was sitting crying, and then the warlock, all 8 of us, entered one room, and he took the microphone and started reciting the Quran. At that time, every one of the girls started to stand up, except for me. Suddenly, I calmed down and became like this. I'm looking at the girls. Imagine, good people, Zainab, my cousin, was jumping, reaching the ceiling, and landing on her knee with all her strength, and Nora, my sister, was standing, facing the wall, and sitting, hitting her head on it with all her force, until the blood came out. Even if I were to sit and talk to you from today until tomorrow, I would not be able to describe to you the situation that I saw in front of me because I was literally in a dream. The important thing is that during the time that the warlock was sitting reading, Fatima was sitting in front of him with her head down, and the evil inside her began speaking, and I want you to focus with me so that you know what he said and what will happen next. The evil said to the warlock, "Warlock, stop reading, and I will dismiss your requests. Answer in." The warlock said to him, "Who are you and what do you want from these girls, and who is the person who sent you?" He said, "I am Maymun, the chief of the evil in Pakistan, and I am sent by the king of the evil kings to destroy the lives of these girls. I and my brothers who are younger than me, and each one of these girls has an evil inside them, and the reason is that I perform magic on them and are considered among the people the most powerful types of magic, and the person who applied the magic to them was their grandfather, and he used blood in it, and blood magic only works with blood." The warlock said to him, "What can you do?" He said, "Now I will come out of Fatima, and you will see with your own eyes, He came out of Fatima with all his might, until her stomach exploded and she died immediately, and at that moment this room became very hot, as if it had been burned, to the point that even the warlock fled from the room due to the force of fear, and all the girls fainted. The day an uncle entered the room, they saw each one of us sitting in a corner, and her condition was in a state. The great shock was that Fatima died. Fatima, who was afraid for us from the beginning, alerted and warned us and told us, "Do not approach this old man," but for us, our secrets were one of the reasons for Fatima's death. Today, I still blame myself because I did not listen to her words. Unfortunately, on that day the whole family was busy with us and forgot about the children whose condition was the same. After a few days had passed since this calamity that happened to us, my father returned to the warlock and tried to convince him to come. He read to us a second time, but the warlock was refusing and at the same time afraid. He says that the situation that happened to him that day while he was reading to us was the worst situation that happened to him since the day he started the reading. The important thing is that the days counted and our situation, with all his money, became worse. One day we woke up in the morning to my aunt screaming because her son, who is Fatima's husband from the first place, entered the room and found him. He died and no one knew the reason. Today he was soft and satisfied. A week after the death of Fatima's husband, my second cousin, who was Zainab's husband, died. The cause of their death was unknown at the time. My father and my uncles did not know what to do because they were confused by the force of the shocks that were coming at them after each other, and one of them left. Senior warlock in the city informed him of everything that happened to us in detail. And they told him that my grandfather was the one who put magic on us, and after that he disappeared, and we do not know where he went, and after he heard the whole matter, he said the only solution is that you watch and never gather together, and each one of you goes to his country, and if you want to rest, this is it. It is the only solution. Even though this thing was very difficult for us, but since it was the only solution, we were forced to settle it. And the warlock's intention was that if we separate, we will let the jinn within us emerge, because the evil within us are considered brothers, and they cannot abandon each other or move away from each other. And if we separate, we are each one. When we went to a country, they were forced to leave us, and in fact, my father and my uncle met so that each one of us decided where to go. My father said, "I am going to Saudi Arabia because I know it and have been there before, and on top of that, I know people there, and it is easy for me to get a new sponsor." My second uncle said, "I am going to Australia because I studied there and I know all its streets." The third and fourth, and each one of them chose a country to live in, and that was it. These were the last days we were together, and after that we never saw each other again. These 2 days are considered among the worst days that I have ever experienced, because after that I lost my sense of family and homeland, and we actually returned to Saudi Arabia, and I was 16 years old at that time. My father said, "I will enroll you in the same private school that I was enrolled in before." I refused and told him, "I do not want to enroll in any regular school so that I can adapt to people and know how to speak Arabic." He told me, "Okay," and he actually enrolled me in a school where the majority of students were female, Saudis, and during my first 2 months in this school, they were accusing me because I was Pakistani, and I do not deny that this thing caused me a psychological complex because it continued with me for a very long period until I met a student named Reem. And today Reem is the rest of my friend, and she is considered one of my closest friends. And from the first time I met her, because of her, I felt that my life had changed, and I had learned many things, especially in religion, because I was a little weak in it. She started walking with me in school and saying, "Which one of you is bullying Sarah will have problem with me there since the day Sarah went away." This is considered my sister, and in fact, after what she said, none of the girls would think that he is a bully. The second time, I started to feel comfortable in Saudi Arabia, and Noura, my sister, was also in the same situation. I met Saudi friends and started walking with them, and my father became happy in his work. I mean, our lives almost stabilized and changed 1,000,000 degrees from our life in Pakistan. The days and months counted, and I started going with Reem, my friend, to Quran memorization sessions. Thank God, I was able. I memorized the entire Quran within 3 years. As for Noura, my sister, her condition worsened again and became worse than before, and suddenly, one day, while we were in school at the time, I was studying 3rd secondary school, and Noura, my sister, was studying 1st secondary school, and I was sitting with Reem and the girls. Suddenly, Noura's friends came over to me, and they told me the truth, my sister, and I went with them and started running like crazy. When I first arrived, I saw a situation that had happened to me 4 years ago when we were in Pakistan. At that time, the warlock was reading to us. My sister, Noura, was standing in front of the wall and sitting, hitting her head. And now in school, she was sitting and making the same movement to the point that it was covered in blood. His head was severely damaged, and I pulled it out of her hand while I was sitting there crying out of fear for her. I went to the teacher's room and let them call the ambulance. The ambulance came and took her to the hospital. Now her condition was very serious. They admitted her to intensive care. Unfortunately, I sat in it for 2 days, and then she passed away. Good people, my sister Noura, whom I considered to be my other half, died. I did not imagine that I would be able to live without her. But what I can say is that God has mercy on her and does not have mercy on the one who caused her death. The important thing is that after this incident, the police summoned my father to investigate him, and my father at that time taught them everything and told them that the girls were enchanted by their grandfather when we were in Pakistan. After they heard my father's words, they directed him to a warlock in Medina and told him to go to this warlock so that he can promote all of you. In fact, after a while, we went to this sheikh, and the first time we arrived there he explained to my father our situation, and he began to read it to my mother and father, but they were very normal. But when my turn arrived, I started to feel better. With things it is strange except that suddenly the evil inside spoke and said, "Warlock, I am a Muslim evil. It is true that my brothers are infidels and destroyed the life of this family, but I am a Muslim evil, and praise be to God, I memorized the entire Quran with Sarah, and it is enough for her not to let me leave her because I fear that if I leave her, my brothers will look for me and take revenge on me because I disobeyed his order." The king of the kings of the evil, the warlock, said to him, "Unfortunately, I cannot leave him. And now, God forbid, you must get rid of this girl so that she can go on and live her life comfortably." And in fact, this evil came out of me and has not returned to softness today, but thank God it was a Muslim evil and did not harm me. And on top of that, he memorized the Quran on me, my hand, of course. This is what my father said to me because at the time he was reading Warlock Ali, I was not aware. But my father was in the room with us and heard all the words that the evil said. Indeed, I was sure that the evil was Muslim and peaceful, and thank God he did not harm me. The important thing is that I counted the days and months and graduated from high school, and because I graduated from high school, my father bought me a mobile phone as a gift and considered it a graduation gift. I took the mobile phone and started downloading programs. Among the programs I downloaded was the Twitter program, which is currently my cousin, who was living in America at the time, and I went private with her and started sending her messages. Glory be to God. The first time I sent her a message, she replied, and I started asking her about Omani and the rest of the family because we haven't seen them for 5 years, but she shocked me with her response and said that the whole family had died and there was no one left. Thank God, A year after my graduation, I married the son of a friend of mine. My father is at work, and currently he and I are living a beautiful life. Thank God, I am happy. We have 2 daughters, and the eldest of them, I named her Nura after my sister. May God have mercy on her. If you like the story, do not forget to like and subscribe, and activate the bell to receive everything new in horror stories.